Mere Conservatism.
And here we are, another edition of Mere Conservatism. And in our case, school is back in session, so it's really starting to feel, it's making me think of fall, no matter how hot it is, David.
School's in for some folks.
Yeah.
And you're getting a lot of those pictures online of, it's my kid's first day, and they're holding the signs, and Jimmy is 18, and it's his senior year.
It's got to make you feel kind of good in a way because you and your wife homeschool, as so many people are doing more and more at that. So it's not really a change for you this time of year.
Well, our daughter doesn't start for another week and a half.
Okay.
And we have two younger kids who are going to go to like a preschool type thing at our church a couple days a week. So that's not starting until September. So we still have another week or so of summer.
Got a while to go.
I mean, by the way, where we live, it's about 100 degrees. So summer lasts well into really October. Frankly, it stays hot around here
for sure. And you might be hearing this podcast in a cooler climate. Good for you. That's all I can say.
Yeah, we're not jealous at all when it's 100% humidity and 100 degrees, and we're dealing with all that. It gets pretty sticky out.
Sticky is the word.
You know what it is? It's the global warming. It's all that global warming.
Oh, please don't get me started on that. Please.
You know what'll fix it? If you buy a Tesla, Cleve.
Well,
that's all. If only you would buy a Tesla, we would solve all this heat.
Well, you and I are fixing, and I say you and I and all the other taxpayers are fixing to help out the global warming people a lot, because after what Democratic West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin did, and announcing that agreement to advance the green energy and the pharmaceutical spending bill. I hate the way they do this, but of course they came up with this name, the Inflation Reduction Act. Don't you just want to throw something at the TV when you hear them say things like that?
Yes, absolutely. It's basically the organization from 1984 that titles things the opposite of what they really are.
Yeah, right.
Ministry of Truth.
It's
coming out with
that.
Naming these bills. It's wild.
It does the opposite. It's going to actually increase if it's passed, which I think is probably pretty sure bet that it will if they can convince Sinema to go along with it, which I think they will. Now, how does this make you feel about Joe Manchin?
Joe Manchin is an interesting case.
Okay.
And, I'm glad he's not blowing up the filibuster and all that stuff. But look, he's a Democrat.
Right.
And he's in the reddest state in America. I don't know how much longer he's going to be a senator there in West Virginia.
After this, I don't think very long, okay? He got a lot, I'm sure, for his agreeing to this bargain. I know that one of his main donors is a pipeline guy who, and this will do something about his project in West Virginia. I forget the guy's name. And so, but he's not looking very good to me right now. By the way, Manchin is beholden to people outside of West Virginia because I was checking out something on Fox News, and they said that his campaign funding, most of it comes from out-of-state contributions and corporate donations. That's the bulk of his fundraising. So it's like he's beholden to people other than...
Yeah, well, it's probably a lot. If it comes from out of state, it's probably a lot of Democrats from other states who want to hold a Democratic seat in West Virginia, of all places.
Yeah, so to me, it just means that they have leverage on him that even the citizens that he ostensibly represents apparently don't have. So he's disappointing to me. I every time I try to give a Democrat the benefit of the doubt and say, maybe they have a good reason for doing this, and maybe, who knows, they're going to finally stand up. And I thought he was. And, of course, this is a scaled-down version of the bill, but still, it's all going to add it's all going to add to the problem. Everything in this bill will add to the problem.
Look, Cleve, don't get upset when Democrats act like Democrats. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
I can't help it. I let myself get to the point where I'm thinking somebody like I thought Manchin was going to do the right thing, simple on principle. Mm-hmm. He operates on things, but it's not principle.
Well, that's why it's really important that we take the Senate.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure we're going to.
Well, we
have some tricky races.
Yeah, we do.
Where we're running some candidates that I'm like Dr. Oz.
Yeah,
in Pennsylvania.
Now, I was always suspect about him. I really was, and I don't know that he will win. But
he's running against the guy who literally had a stroke. on the campaign trail, and he is, I believe, still losing in the polls.
He's still behind, okay? And, we could lose that, but I'm going to try to give you some consolation because your home state of Georgia is also very important, to say the least.
And Herschel Walker is not doing as well in the polls as I would hope.
Yeah, you would have thought he would be better, but the last poll I saw, and there's several out there, some showing that one is ahead, some showing that the other is ahead, but usually it's within 1 or 2 percentage points, so it's close.
It's close.
And that's the thing about it is, but he's going to win. I just tell you this. Okay?
Herschel Walker's going to win?
Herschel Walker is going to win that seat. Very, very important. And even more important, not even more important, but also important, I believe Kemp is going to defeat Stacey
Abrams. Yeah.
And that's important, too. Because I got to tell you, as important as winning back the Senate is, it just makes my skin crawl that Stacey Abrams would ever be called the governor of Georgia.
Well, she's been called the governor of Georgia for 4 years by the Democrats.
Yeah, that's a good point. So at any rate, just Joe Manchin again doing what Democrats do, kind of setting aside principle, going along with the program. And
yeah, I think I have to call boo on the way you describe that, man. He's not setting aside principle. He's a Democrat. Okay. Cleve, I'm trying to tell you. I don't know what I don't know what you expect from him.
Ordinarily I would push back against you even more, but over the course of this Biden administration and with no Democrat at all seeming to show any thing about backbone or principle in putting the country ahead of their party, I tend to agree with you right now. To me, if Democrat means mud, but that's just me. Here's something that'll make you feel good. Ron DeSantis, bless his heart, but I like this guy more. He suspended liberal state attorney Andrew Warren this past Thursday. He made the announcement during a press conference and on social media. He said that Warren has repeatedly refused to enforce Florida laws passed by the legislature cracking down on child sex change surgeries, which he calls,
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And also, he hasn't been wanting to uphold Florida's abortion restrictions. So DeSantis says, the Constitution of Florida has vested the veto power in the governor and not in state attorneys. So we're not going to allow this, he called it, pathogen of ignoring the law, get a foothold in the state of Florida. So you're out of here.
You're fired.
I love it. I'm sorry. I told you.
Stop transing the kids and stop killing the kids.
Yes. I mean, I told you a long time ago, and I like saying things that I was right about. I said this was going to come down to the governors, Republican governors, standing up to the culture wars in the way they haven't before. Mm-hmm. And DeSantis is number one. Abbott is doing what he can, not as quite as well as him, but Abbott is still doing well, and there's some others. But, man, how does that make you feel?
Well, it's good. I'm glad, Ron DeSantis, one characteristic of him is that he is not afraid to use his power as governor.
Right.
Which many Republicans have been wary to do. They have been very slow to exercise the power that they've been given by the people to do the things that they need to do. And that's one thing I really like about Ron DeSantis. He is a political heavyweight.
Yeah.
And he uses his leverage. He uses his power for good reasons. And, we are conservative. We have, some of us lean libertarian a little bit, mm-hmm. and we sometimes are cautious about the government using power. But we've come to a point where we've got to do that. Mm-hmm. The government, as the governor of Florida, if he has some power, he needs to use it for the right reasons. And I see him using his power for all the right reasons.
That's my point. And there's two right reasons for me. Number one, the Democrats are definitely using their powers as governors in a strong way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
They're going over and above.
Exactly. They're not shy about using their gubernatorial authority to the point of an extreme. So we can't let them be able to do that and us not stand up for something. And number two, David, we need to understand, meaning our side, Republicans, evangelical Christians and everything, that this government is literally trying to take away the freedoms of Americans, your freedom and my freedom. So it's not the time to say, well, let's just reach across the aisle. I got to tell you, The only reason to reach across the aisle now is to smack a Democrat. Okay, that's the only time.
Wow, that's one way to put it. But yeah, well, and here's another thing, Cleve. We got to be clear at this point. I think that we have, in some ways, moved beyond the philosophical arguments about what government ought to be used for, and what's the ideal way that government is set up. We have a reality.
Yes.
And one of the things that you and I talk about quite often is, okay, you have ideals. Now, also live in the real world. What is the reality that we're dealing with?
Thank you.
And the truth is that mutilating children is wrong to do.
Now explain, in case somebody just come in, when you say mutilated children, you're referring to
these sex change surgeries and basically transing the kids. We sum it up by saying transing the kids, even giving them the hormones and stuff like that. It's not a good thing.
It's not.
And so at some point we have to not just have a philosophical idea of live and let live and you do you and all that stuff. No, some things are actually wrong to do. Mm-hmm. Even if you're just doing it to yourself.
Right.
And I feel like we have to have the position that even adults mutilating themselves to appear to be a different sex than they are is bad. Mm-hmm. That's a bad thing. Now, that doesn't mean we need to necessarily outlaw it. But what I'm saying is that we have to have a mindset and communicate the mindset to people around us that this is not a good thing, it's bad, because, and I've said this before, if it's okay for adults to do it to themselves, why wouldn't you do it to kids? There's a line of thinking where you could say either it's good or it's bad, and if it's good, or if it's okay, quote unquote, then why wouldn't you do it to kids? And if it's bad, you shouldn't do it to adults. You shouldn't do it to kids. It's a bad thing.
Well, just to show you your point, there are even on record now so-called transgendered adults who are saying it is wrong to let minors make this decision or come to this conclusion of where they're going to identify. Even transgendered adults are saying it. And the minute they do that, talking about the self-described transgender adults, then they become the enemy of the same movement that ostensibly is championing this brand new identity called transgender.
So so it's true on that issue of transing the kids. It's true on abortion too.
Yes.
Abortion, it's not okay. It's not good. And as people on the right, as believers and as conservatives, we need to make sure that that's the position. It's not even that, hey, you do you, and hey, if you don't want an abortion, don't have one, blah, blah, blah. No, it's actually an active bad to do it. We're going to outlaw it in our states, and we expect the prosecutors and whoever else to uphold those laws because that's your job.
Now, Kansas, of course, had a setback recently when the voters there said we don't want to put it in the Constitution.
Yeah, the Kansas voters decided to keep the status quo, which they already had it in their Constitution to keep it. So, you know what? I don't like that. Mm-hmm.
But that's their vote. But
that is a state level decision,
and I can respect that. Again, it's not imposed on high. I think it's wrong, of course, because
I do.
Here's the thing. Again, for conservative Christians, especially, maybe more so than just regular Republicans, it's a matter of murder of an innocent human being. Mm-hmm. So we don't have no wiggle room, David. We don't have any wiggle room to say, hey, let's reach across the aisle.
And look, that's wrong. But it seems like the Republicans in Kansas have some hearts and minds to change.
Yeah. That's okay. That's where it's got to start. They're still trying to fight, though. And that's what we got to do. And now that Roe v. Wade is overturned, at least we get to fight that fight. Mm-hmm. So there's something to be said there. I got to bring this to you. I was wanting to see your expression when this first started coming down the pipe. China now has claimed its military has successfully executed precision missile strikes in Taiwan this past Thursday, in the Taiwan Strait, I should say. That was the day after Nancy Pelosi left that island. China, of course, repeatedly condemned Pelosi's visit. And now China's Navy and Air Force began conducting military exercises in 6 other zones, with some overlapping Taiwan's territorial waters. And the U.S. has responded, by the way, by deploying several warships. Of course, they got missiles flying around near Japan as well. So What is your take? First of all, was your opinion about Pelosi making this trip?
I think it was a good thing that she made the trip. She kind of painted herself into a corner, I should say, because once you say you're going to go and China says you better not, you can't back down at that point. You just
we
can't
could
do
have. I tell you the truth. I hate to say that, but I think that at one point Biden and company were actually toying with that idea,
I think they probably wanted to her.
Yeah, exactly.
Wanted her to. I think it's good though that she went. Kudos to her for going. However, what's the strategy here? Part of the problem with the Biden administration is that they are all over the place. There's no big idea that grounds them.
Right.
Okay, so you have Pelosi going to Taiwan, supporting Taiwan ostensibly. You have Biden saying, "Oh no, we support the one China policy. We don't support Taiwan independence." Then you have China launching some missiles, but you got the U.S. deploying warships. Why? If it's one China, then why are you doing that?
But there's something they call, and the word they use is ambiguity that they have agreed on. In other words, they don't want to state one way or the other on our side where it stands.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's frustrating, Cleve, because so much of the problem here is that the cat is already out of the bag when it comes to the Biden administration. So you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube when it comes to what happened in Afghanistan.
No, you can't.
You can't put it back in the tube when it comes to what's happening in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. This all started 1 year ago, Cleve. Can you believe it's been a year since the
long year.
1 year since the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. It was horrible, and it has set up the United States. First of all, it ended the Biden administration, set up the United States to be completely undependable and unbelievable. We now have no authority to do anything on the world stage.
Look what we have in the White House, okay? And just on that point you made right there, to me, Afghanistan opened up this can of worms. Our debacle of an exit from there told Russia, if you're going to invade Ukraine, this is the time to do it.
Yes.
And it's telling China, if you're going to be bold about what you're doing, it's the time to do it.
These things feed off of each other, and the errors are just compounding here with the Biden administration. China is a huge threat.
You better believe it.
And I am in support of much more than doing anything in Ukraine is standing strong against China. The problem is we can't stand strong because we are not strong.
Thank you.
We are weak because of our leadership.
Yeah.
It's a real problem. And I don't know the answer to it because my best answer would be to have a different administration. And that's not going to happen for another 2.5 years or so. Right. So I'm not sure what we're going to do when it comes to China. We need to protect Taiwan because it's actually in our national interest. The things that they produce there in Taiwan, we need them. We can't have China controlling the semiconductors and the microchips and stuff like that. We need to make some here, which I think they're actually working on, starting to make some here, which is a good thing. But I say again, we've in many ways done this to ourselves, and it's very frustrating to see that.
China is making inroads all around the world. And this is where you and I separate ourselves from our libertarian brethren who believe that if we just bring everything on shore and forget about the rest of the world, everything is cool.
It's not.
That's stupid.
And that's never been true from the very beginning of our country.
It's not reality.
It's not true from the beginning of the world.
Right.
You can't shut out the world and expect freedom to flourish here.
Because China wants to run the world. They're going all around the globe. They're in Africa. They're in parts of South America as far as their influences and what they're doing, buying up property, even in our own nation. The farmland they got right close to one of our military bases and whatnot. So you're right. China smells to me blood in the water. They know what's in that White House because I believe he's bought and paid for by China.
Things would be so different under Trump. China would still be a problem. But you know what wouldn't be a problem? Afghanistan. Because I don't think we ever would have left.
No, not that way.
Certainly not that way.
Yeah.
But I don't think we would have because I don't think the Taliban would have cooperated the way Trump expected them to. Putin never would have invaded Ukraine under Donald Trump. And here we are, out of Afghanistan, handed the country over to terrorists. Something happened on that this week. We can talk about it in a second. We're in a war in Ukraine. Remember back when the Ukraine thing started and we were all worried about escalating it?
I do.
And being way too involved and being really careful about what types of weapons we send and all that stuff. And now we're just openly funding the Ukrainian resistance. It's very strange how the messaging and the apparent goal shifting on that issue has changed. But we're basically in a proxy war in Ukraine, and now we have saber rattling with China. We're in a bad position.
And let's understand something that you just alluded to. We'll go ahead and touch on it now. Okay, even the victory lap that Biden has taken over the killing of our hero, I don't even know how to pronounce the guy's name, all right, of this Al-Qaeda leader, the Al-Qaeda leader, only shows what has happened because of his bungling in Afghanistan. Literally, Afghanistan now is a hotbed of that.
The logical question, of course, is why 1 year after the United States left Afghanistan is the leader of Al-Qaeda leisurely hanging out on a balcony in Kabul?
Yeah, because he was there as a guest of the Taliban.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating, Cleve.
It ought to
look,
be.
I'm glad we got him, but think about this means that Al-Qaeda is now back entrenched in Afghanistan. They're buddies with the Taliban. We already knew that. This is not a surprise. We knew this was the case. Yet they negotiated with the Taliban. Trump never should have done that. I still say that was a big mistake. Biden never should have handed the country over to the Taliban. Everybody knew that was going to happen as soon as we left. And now Al-Qaeda is back. And sure, we got an airstrike, but it took us 6 months of making sure it was the right guy. That means he was hanging out in Kabul for 6 months. Who knows what's happening?
That's my point.
In this terrorism hotbed in Kabul, Afghanistan. This is a real problem.
Glad he's gone, but his presence there indicates, again, the bungling policy of the Biden administration that has allowed Afghanistan to become the hotbed of terrorist activity that it is.
Yeah.
Got to get this in because this is funny, serious, but funny, too. Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser is calling for the National Guard to be activated to assist with an influx of migrants that she has described as a, quote, humanitarian crisis. She's talking about we're being overwhelmed.
Have you seen a point proved better?
No, I haven't.
It's amazing.
I remember people on our side, as a matter of fact, Glenn Beck, I follow him a lot, had also said, I think it's wrong, he said, for them to be bringing those illegal immigrants and putting them in New York and D.C. It makes us look bad. But then he backed off. Now he said, now that I see what's happening, he said, I see they made their point in a way that could not possibly be ignored.
Is it wrong? Probably.
But it had to be done.
But it's wrong to begin with. The whole thing is wrong.
But it had to be done.
I think the point has been so well made. Look, you had a few thousand migrants dropped off at your doorstep, New York, and now your system is overwhelmed.
Right.
We've got hundreds of thousands coming over the border.
Yes.
So, it's fine and good for people in Virginia and people in New York and people in San Francisco or Detroit or wherever to think, oh, just let them come. Be nice, grant asylum. We open borders is basically what they're saying. You see what just a little taste of that does to them.
Yep.
And you get an idea of what it must be like on the border in some of these small towns, some of these border towns that are literally being overwhelmed by this.
And here's the thing. We're also hearing more and more stories. Again, not all of the illegal aliens coming on over are bad people, but we have had enough of criminal acts and murder and other horrible things happen as a result of illegal immigrants being present. I don't even want to talk about the last one that involved this young girl and another couple, because there are horrible individuals coming across this border and committing heinous acts, and this, unfortunately, to me, what is happening is the only way to bring it to the forefront of a lot of people, because a lot of people only watch CNN and foolishness like that and don't even know about what's happening at our southern border.
It's a real problem. It's dangerous, and I don't know, Cleve. We got to find a way to stop the bleeding at the border.
But you know that the border wall we started building that under Biden.
Biden has started back on portions of the racist wall. Yes,
yeah.
Isn't that funny?
You know why? And here's my theory on that right quickly. They actually, I think they, meaning the Democrats and the progressives who want us to have open borders, I think they always had in mind about a set figure to let in before they ostensibly now realize we got a problem here. And so right now I've heard estimates that at this rate, by the end of the year or so, we might have like 5 or 6 million that have made it in. Okay, and that's enough for them to do.
You think that's how many they wanted? That's an interesting. That's an interesting theory.
That's enough for them to do what they want to do. So now they can change the narrative and says, "Oh, we got an emergency all of a sudden. Now we need to do the right thing and look at us building that wall. Look at us really getting serious about that border. Hey, we might even let Kamala come down and actually be at the border where all this is going on, because everything about them is just establishing the narrative that they're doing something about problems that they created. I mean, David, it's frustrating in so many ways.
It's so frustrating, and my hope is in God.
Yeah. Has to be.
But it is difficult to see what's happening in our country and know that this is more or less what we get for the next 2.5 years. And it's been so rough during the Biden presidency so far, especially starting about a year ago, because this Afghanistan debacle was really when it all went to pot. Okay.
Right. Definitely. And you can trace it from there.
And you can trace it. That was really the moment. There was a kind of a honeymoon period. This was the moment where it really got bad, and it's been really bad ever since. And it feels like it's been 10 years, but it's been 1.
Yeah. I don't know, except by the grace of God, if we can turn this thing around. I believe in my heart we can. But it's going to take, again, people like Ron DeSantis. It's going to take, again, taking over the Senate as well as the House. And it's going to take conservatives and others refusing to be silenced on the court of public debate. Where can they hear this entire broadcast again, my friend?
Check it out on Apple Podcasts. Find it on YouTube under MereCon Media. You can find it on Facebook, find it on Spotify, all your favorite places to listen to podcasts.
You say that so well. That's David Perry, and I'm Cleve Walker. And yeah, we talked about a lot of serious stuff, but it's not over with yet. So keep the faith and join us for another edition of Mere Conservatism.